After a big 47-7 victory over East Central in the home opener last week, the ACU Wildcat season heads south. Division play begins tonight against those Tarleton State Texans. We'll look back at last week's big win, look ahead to the game against Tarleton State, right now on The Chris Thomsen Show. Welcome to the Chris Thomsen Show, Week 4 of the 2010 season. Grant Boone, Brandon Tripp, my normal sidekick, is out with a throat this week, and so we're going to go single back set here with head coach Chris Thomsen. Coach, 47-7 your team winners last week over East Central. What did you learn about your team from that 40-point victory?
I think they improved from week 2 to week 3. I think they showed the improvement throughout the week in practice, and I think that showed in the game. They did a good job in all 3 phases, really, and really more specifically just our running back depth. We found some guys there that, Harkless got his first start and responded well, and then Shakandrick West went over 100 yards, and then Josh Morgan had some nice carries. So, it was a big question coming in with Reggie being out, and then Darryl was out Saturday for the game with a knee strain. So, really good to see those guys step up. Found out we have some depth at that position.
And good to have a home game finally, huh?
Yeah, it was great to be in front of the home crowd. Had a great crowd at the game, and really energized our guys and helped us win that game.
Okay, so you beat a really good MIAA team, a top 10 team in Washburn to open the season. Then you go on the road to beat a North Division team, and then you have the home opener against another North Division opponent. But starting tonight against your rival from down I-20, Tarleton State from Stephenville, you begin a stretch of 6 games out of the next 8 against your Lone Star Conference South Division rivals. This really is, with respect to those other 3, this is where the meat of the schedule gets to you, isn't it?
Yeah, and when we looked at the schedule, we hoped that we'd be able to have a 3-0 start going into this next stretch of games, starting with Tarleton. And this is where you find out how really good you are. This will be the best defense that we face for sure. Their offense has some playmakers. The quarterback got hurt early in the season, Nick Stevens, so they're still trying to figure that position out a little bit. But Doyle's done a good job, and it's going to be a tough game. These guys, every time we play them, it's a flat out war. So we expect nothing less tonight.
Yeah, and we've had different kinds of wars. You've had the ones that have been low scoring like last year, and then the high flying affairs of a few years ago. We'll talk about Tarleton in just a moment, but when we come back, we will recap that big 47-7 victory over East Central. We'll look at the highlights, and we'll get Coach T's analysis. You're watching The Chris Thomsen Show. Welcome back to The Chris Thomsen Show. Let's look at the highlights from the home opener last Saturday night, ACU against East Central University at Shotwell Stadium. First drive of the game, how about Tyler Vanderzee for East Central hitting Tyra Waits on 3rd and 14, a 70-yard catch and run. And a minute 8 into the game, it was East Central 7 and ACU nothing. That got the Wildcats' attention, obviously, because on the ensuing drive, Gale would complete a 10-play drive by hitting Clyde Gates with this unbelievable reception in the end zone from 9 yards out, the 17th career touchdown reception for Clyde, 7-7, still early in the first. Next drive, Vanderzee hit as he throws, and David Lamore, the transfer defensive back, with his first career interception for ACU. And just a couple of plays later, Gale, in trouble, pressure coming from up the middle, just dumps it off to Darryl Cantu Harkless, and the redshirt freshman from Austin Crockett High School does the rest. 35 yards on this catch and run, better than 160 all-purpose yards for Darryl Cantu Harkless. 14-7 at that point, midway through the first. It was 17-7 when Gale hits Edmund Gates for 21 yards, 5 catches in the game, 55 receiving yards for Clyde Gates, down to the East Central 35-yard line. 3 plays later, ACU's newest offensive weapon, Emery the Hammer Dudensing, the fullback out of the backfield, catches that pass from Mitchell Gale, and that made it 24-7. Still in the first quarter, Tyler Vanderzee, nowhere to go, just going to tuck it and run, stop short of the first down. East Central 2 of 15 converting third downs in this game, and it would not get much better. Vanderzee, 3rd and long from deep in his own territory. Hits the wrong jersey. Darian Williams, transfer from North Texas, his 2nd pick of the season. And then Bryson Lewis, after a botched snap, falls on the loose ball in the end zone. At that point, it was 44-7. Going to the 3rd quarter, Mitchell Gale scrambling and dumping a perfect pass into the arms of Shakandrick West, 27 yards, and ACU would win it 47-7. All right, Coach, 47-7, your team goes to 3-0, number 4 in one national poll, number 5 in another, which, again, as we've said many times, the national polls don't have a direct impact on your postseason. But as Darrell Royal, the great Texas coach, said, if you're going to have those things, you want to be high in them. So you are 4 and 5 in the 2 respective national polls. 47-7, although that 7 for East Central happened within the first, minute 8 seconds. So for the 2nd time in 3 games this year, your team allows an opening drive touchdown. Is that a coincidence, a concern, or a little of both?
Well, it's a concern because in both of those cases you had breakdowns and really more mental breakdowns than a physical problem. So, you want to address those things. You always want to get off to a fast start. I think most of our guys understand that. There's a couple guys that haven't gotten off to a great start and haven't been totally focused right there at the onset, and those are things you got to correct. You can't overcome those against great teams.
Okay, now that was the bad part for the defense, but the other 58 minutes and 52 seconds went pretty well. If my math is correct, the first 4 plays that East Central ran accounted for 80 yards. Over the next 52 plays, they accumulated only 39 yards. Now, I don't think anyone's trying to compare this East Central team to some of those great Patriot teams with Brady and Moss and whatnot, but to do 52 plays and 39 yards, I don't care who you're playing, that's pretty impressive, isn't it?
Yeah, it's real good. And it's, speaks to what our defense is doing. The front seven's doing a great job applying pressure and stopping the run. I think they were minus 12 rushing. So anytime you can just basically shut a team's run game down, you're going to get some opportunities to rush the passer. And those guys, a lot of veteran leaders up there in that group, and the secondary's coming along and taking steps. So we're encouraged about that group.
I don't think you can have a good secondary if you don't have a good front 7, right?
Yeah, it all fits together. I mean, the pressure that they apply helps the secondary, but there's new faces back there, and that was kind of what happened on the first play. We just weren't in the right spot, and we got to get those things cleaned up. Tarleton has got some great athletes at the receiver position and can expose you quick.
Let me talk to you about the secondary for just a minute, or ask you about those guys, because we saw 2 of your transfers in here, David Lamore and Darian Williams, pick off passes. And I thought it just kind of signified, kind of the new look of that secondary. You don't have Alex Harbison, who didn't play last year, but had played a couple of years ago. Demaria Jordan's gone. Obviously, the great Tony Harp. Major Colbert was I don't know that we go to the playoffs without Major Colbert last year, a transfer from Nebraska. So some new faces. What's your take on the secondary after 3 games, and are you satisfied, and are you done tweaking with that secondary?
Not entirely. I mean, we're still seeing how guys respond in game situations, and all of them are doing really good things. That's the encouraging thing. We see progress. We see them, being able to adjust to our system and do the things that we want to do. But anytime you got new people, you're constantly tweaking that and trying to find out what the best combination is, and that's all starting to become more clear, and will become more clear as we go throughout the next couple of weeks. But the type of offenses that we're going to face, you don't have a lot of time to experiment. You got to get set with a group of guys and go.
Let's talk about your offense, because you not only roll up 559 yards, but against a team against whom he debuted as a starter last year, Mitchell Gale threw a career-high 5 touchdown passes. I talked to Edmund Clyde Gates, the star wide receiver for your Wildcat team. He told me that looking at the film from last year to this, it doesn't even look like the same quarterback. It's not just the hair that's been cut off for Mitchell Gale. He said Mitch on film looks like a completely different guy. What have you seen?
Yeah, he does, and some of the people that saw the home game Saturday made that comment that, wow, he looks totally different than what he used to look like. And I can see that too. It's just more footwork than anything. He's getting his body in great position, and I think just a great off season and a great summer. We talked about that a lot, that we hope that would translate. And anytime you prepare like he did, you're a stronger athlete. You get your body in better position to make plays, and that's what he's done. and everything seems to be, falling in place for him. Now Tarleton State will give him his biggest test.
And he really struggled in that game last year, 13-6, a loss. We'll talk about that more in just a moment. But I thought the play where he dumped it off to Daryl Cantu Harkless with a couple of guys draped around his hips is a play that maybe he doesn't make last year. Either he tucks it and runs or he goes down. He really stood tall on that play that we just saw a moment ago.
Yeah, well, even in the Washburn game, he ran the ball 5-6 times, and that was a situation where 3 weeks ago even he would have taken off running and been sacked or maybe made a yard or two. But he's learning to find those outlet receivers, and Daryl was wide open in the middle of the field and got it to him, and then Daryl's great in open space, and he made a great play and a great run. And those are the kind of things that just the development of a quarterback and the maturation starts to show.
Daryl Cantu Harkless now second in the Lone Star Conference in all-purpose yardage, better than 160 yards. Last Saturday night, he had, and that's what he's averaged for the season. You mentioned Shakandrick West goes over 100 yards as well. And Clyde Gates with maybe as acrobatic a touchdown catch as we've seen in the last several years from some pretty good players in Wildcat uniforms.
Yeah, it reminded me a little bit of a catch Johnny made against Eastern New Mexico, Johnny Knox in 07 maybe, similar, almost the same spot in the end zone, just an unbelievably acrobatic play, great play.
Speaking of Johnny, we'll hear and see some of our visit with Johnny Knox and Danielle Manning in the Cowboy-Bear game from last Sunday, but when we return, we will have the JMC Network Sportscast and our newest edition of Washington's Post. You're watching The Chris Thomsen Show. Welcome back to The Chris Thomsen Show. ACU and tonight's opponent, Tarleton State, have engaged in some of the most fiercely fought contests over the last few years in the Lone Star Conference. Go back to 2007. ACU went to Stephenville, won 70-63. The year before that, the Texans handed ACU its first loss of that season. Well, the Wildcats and Texans share not only the color purple, but a very intense Lone Star Conference South Division rivalry, as we find out this week from Kevin Washington, sixth-year linebacker, in this week's edition of Washington's Post.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Washington Post. This week we're playing Tarleton, and a lot of guys ask me, a lot of people ask me, a lot of fans ask me, hey, is this one of your guys' biggest rivalries? Well, I decided to ask our guys what makes a rivalry.
We had one huge rivalry. It was called the Battle of the Bell, and it was with Cameron. And we used to get stomped all the time by him. But my senior year was the 50th anniversary of the Battle of the Bell, and we had to win that thing. So yeah, it was a rivalry just because we had actually something tangible to play for.
Do the fans get into the rivalry pretty much too? They get into it big?
Especially here at ACU, whenever we play Angelo State, whenever we play Tarleton, when we play West Texas, the fans and the support that we get and come out, and it makes it so loud to where you can't even hear when you put your helmet on. It's the best experience, and that's why you play football.
At North Shore, do you guys have a lot of rivalries, or?
Yeah, we had Deer Park and Pearland.
How was that a rivalry?
Oh, well, Deer Park was right down the street. It was close to our area, so it was always a lot of noise, talking, and fans get together and meet and go against each other and all that type of stuff.
But Tarleton, I can say, is probably becoming a pretty big rivalry for us because I know, one, they kept us from 2 conference championships. We hold that pretty dear. We're trying to get another one this year. So Tarleton's kind of another rivalry game. We're going to try and come up here and go all out for it because we remember what they did last year, and they played us real hard, so we can't wait to get them back for that and play extremely hard on that one. So yeah, I guess every game's a rivalry game if you look at it the right way. We'll catch you later. This is the Washington Post.
Thanks, Kevin. Kevin Washington's Post all season long here on The Chris Thomsen Show. Well, the football team's not the only Wildcat squad enjoying success so far in 2010. For a look at the rest of the ACU sports world, here's the JMC Network Sportscast.
Welcome back to the JMC Network Sportscast. I'm Austin Gwynn.
And I'm Kristen Goodspeed, here with another weekly look inside ACU sports. The women's soccer team suffered their first loss of the season, ending their 4-0 start. They lost 3-2 in overtime to 12th-ranked Florida Southern. Freshman Andrea Carpenter scored her 6th goal of the season, tying the game 1-1. 10 minutes later, Ashley Holton scored, giving the Wildcats a 2-1 advantage. Defense held Florida Southern from scoring again until the 83rd minute when Florida's Jessica Giblin found an opening inside the ACU box. Florida Southern's Addie Alvarado put the kickoff past London to open overtime. ACU returns to action Tuesday in a non-conference game at Texas Permian Basin.
Well, it was quite the performance for the volleyball team inside of Moody Coliseum over the weekend. In their home opener, the Wildcats absolutely destroyed 9-1 Tarleton in their 3 games, including a 25-8 thumping in Game 3. A raucous crowd showed up in support of their ladies, and the girls didn't disappoint as it was a complete team effort in the win. Only Jenny Hutt recorded double-digit kills with 10, but Shauna Hines, Jordan Schilling, Neely Borger, and the rest of the Cats contributed, adding blocks, kills, digs, and in the case of EJ Morano, assists. The Cats will be back in action Thursday against Texas Women's and Saturday against Texas A&M Commerce.
For the JMC Network, I'm Kristen Goodspeed.
And I'm Austin Gwynn. May the sports be with you.
Well, last weekend was a great couple of days for ACU Wildcat football. Not only did this current team defeat East Central 47-7, but the next day, Coach Thomsen, ACU's new president, Dr. Phil Schubert, and a few others of us had a chance to go east to Arlington, Texas to see a couple of former Wildcats, Johnny Knox and Danielle Manning of the Bears, take on America's team. Here's the ACU contingent. Gonna go check in a couple of our former alums. Whatever happened to Danielle and Johnny?
I'm not really sure. Maybe they're in the Arena League. I'm not sure.
I think we've spotted Johnny. He's maybe picking up his passes before the game. There's Johnny, the far sideline. War number 7 for you, Coach. Give me something about Johnny. Give me a word. What about him?
Just a freak, great speed. Hope he gets loose today.
What a guy. Des Bryant to carry my camera case, and he refused. From the 5 to the 10, up the left side to the 20 to the 25, and leapfrogs his way to the 26. Coach, we get to see those guys on TV every week, but it was really fun to be able to see them in person and give them a hug and a high five, wasn't it, last week?
It was great to be down there for pregame on the field and see those guys moving around and just see how relaxed they are in that atmosphere. I don't think I could be that relaxed in that venue, but they did a great job Sunday.
Well, congratulations to both Johnny and Danielle for helping the Bears to that big 27-20 victory over the Cowboys. When we come back, we'll look at some scores from around the Lone Star Conference last week, and we'll preview ACU's game tonight against Tarleton State. This is the Chris Thomsen Show. Take a look at some of the other scores from around the Lone Star Conference last week. Midwestern State, in a really weird game against Southwestern Oklahoma State, was trailing 2-0, then led 5-2, 8-2, 11-2 before finally winning 46-9. Bill Maskell and the Mustangs are now 3-0. West Texas A&M, a big win over Southeastern Oklahoma State. Texas A&M Kingsville over Texas A&M Commerce, Coach, 21-0. But we found out earlier this week that Fred Winborn, Hollywood they call him, a terrific running back leading the conference in rushing, has been dismissed from the team.
Yeah, and it said academic and university academic and team policy. I don't really know anything beyond that, but he's a great player, great leader for their team, and he'll be sorely missed.
So Kingsville undefeated. It's big games in the conference this week. West Texas A&M goes to Angelo. Obviously, Tarleton State comes into Abilene to Shotwell Stadium. Let's talk about the Texans, because last year was one of just the most fiercely fought defensive struggles that I've seen in the last 3 years I've been broadcasting these games. Your defense let up one play that I can remember the whole night, and that turned out to be the difference maker after your special teams gave up a long touchdown. Devin Gwynn and Jameel Hobson, that terrific bunch, they're now gone. They are 0-3. They lost the opener to Northeastern State. They then lost to Central Oklahoma, and then they lost to a Division I school, Northwestern State, last week. But is it safe to say, Coach, that as they've battled injuries, that 0-3 record isn't fooling you about Tarleton State?
No, it's really not. I mean, in 2006, they started out 0-3 and rallied and almost made the playoffs that year, knocked us out of a conference championship opportunity and beat us by 1 point that same year. So we know what they're made of, and we know their resiliency. And you can watch the 3 games that they've played and see the progression and the improvement. They lost their starting quarterback in game 1, which really set them back. But Doyle's done a really good job, and they, like I said earlier, they have a lot of playmakers on the offensive side of the ball, and they have a really, really good defense. They got some tall guys who can really run. Buchanan in the secondary and Gonzalez on the front seven. I mean, they've got a really, really good defense, much like what they had last year. And they played Northwestern State. They played their best game against Northwestern State, so you can see the improvement and the focus that they've got about getting better. And South Play is going to energize them and get them ready to get them fired up to get going and play ACU. So it's going to be a great game.
New head coach Kerry Fowler, Sam McElroy, the former coach who did a terrific job, took them to the playoffs last year. They were a 10-win team last year. He goes up to join Tommy Tuberville at Texas Tech on his staff. Jamal Steamer on the defensive line, a really good player. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, you think about as highly of Lonnie Buchanan as any other player in the Lone Star Conference, don't you?
Yeah, Lonnie Buchanan's about a 6'2", 6'3" safety. He can really run. He's from Greenville, Mississippi, where Wilbert Montgomery's from. And, you know, just a great player, was an all-conference player last year. And then Steamer's a great player. I mean, he's been a guy that has plagued us since '07. Him and Joseph Thomsen, I'll never forget, in that 70-63 game, had a great battle on the left side over there, and he's just a fantastic player. And they added Anthony Gonzalez and Logan Johnson, blends two defensive ends from last year that won a national championship. So you're talking about a very talented defensive group and also talented on offense, and they're starting to click and come together on the offensive side as well.
Talking about this game against Tarleton, again last year 13-6 the loss, that really seemed to be the low point of last year. You were number one in the nation. You lost the homecoming game to West Texas, where you led going into the fourth quarter. And something happened in the days following, maybe even the 24 hours following that 13-6 loss to Tarleton. Something changed in your team. You sensed it. You came on this show last year and said it. What was it?
Well, it was just the hitting rock bottom offensively, basically. I mean, guys just seeing a horrible performance. Don't have any other way to describe it, you know, just in terms of being on the same page and the continuity that it takes in offensive football to be successful. We just didn't have it that night. But that sparked a real, you know, refocus in that group. Trey Simeon, I'll remember, you know, the great leadership he provided, and Edmund Gates, Mitchell Gale really stepped up that next week after that. So, you know, that sparked a lot of good things in our team. Sometimes you have to really have a terrible performance to refocus and get back going. It's a shame that it took that, but that game really opened our eyes, and I think it's energized our guys this week. We've had our best week of practice, and you know, I think they want to make up for what happened last year.
Quickly, Josh Perez did not play last week. Darrell Richardson did not play. Drew Cuffey did not play. Update me on those guys quickly, and anyone else who may not play this week.
Well, all three of those guys are going to be back in some role this week. We hope full speed. You know, they're feeling good. They've all three practiced, and then you know, Derek Odelusi, who hasn't played yet, has started practicing this week, and expect to see him in somewhat of a role, hopefully special teams. He's such a dominant player there. We've really missed him in the special teams game, and look forward to getting him back. And then Justin Andrews is starting to feel really good. You know, he's been back for a couple of games now. I think he's starting to hit his stride and feel better. So we feel like we're getting healthy. Obviously, without, you know, with the exception of Reggie, who we won't get back, I think everybody else is in pretty good shape.
All right, 6 o'clock kickoff tonight. The pregame show locally on radio in Abilene, Mix 92.5 FM at 5:30. A reminder, you can watch the replay of all home games this year, including this one tonight, at 2 p.m. on Sunday on Channel 40 locally in Abilene, KTES. Got a chance to see that last week, and it was great. And then a reminder, for the very first time, we have the Wildcat Coaches Show, the radio show, Monday night live at Buffalo Wild Wings in Abilene from 7 to 8 p.m. It'll be aired locally on Classic Country 1280 a.m. And we want to invite all of you out to come and be part of that live audience at Buffalo Wild Wings as we have the Wildcat Coaches Show. Coach Thomsen and I will be there, as well as a lot of alumni and students as well. For Coach Thomsen, I'm Grant Boone. Thanks for watching the Chris Thomsen Show. We'll see you at the game tonight at 6.